Scientific Research and Innovation, the EU for Innovation, and the Marie Curie Alumni Association Western Balkans chapter. Today, as also Yunel mentioned, and that's why we are here, we'll focus on ethics in research, a very important topic not only for Albania and the Balkans region, but in fact everywhere. I'm very happy to share with you that we will touch upon various ethical dilemmas here. The structure of this webinar, there will be 5 presentations. The first one will be Livia Tepsi. She is a researcher at Marie Curie Institute in Paris, France. She got a pharma degree at the University of Pisa in 2014, and then pursued her PhD in cell and structural biology in Sorbonne Universities in Paris, France. Her main project today concerns the structural and biochemical studies of the protein target of a small chemical compound able to protect against a large number of pathogens, including parasites, bacteria, and viruses. As proof of the results of her work, there exist 18 PDB structures of proteins and protein ligand complexes that she contributed solving in this PDB database, and also 11 scientific publications with that. This year, she also became part of an Albanian scientific platform where the main goal is to give precise scientific information easily explained to a large public. Her passion for science and the curiosity are driven by the possibility to improve people's lives. Thank you, Livia, and the screen is yours. You can share also your screen at the same time.
Anita, before Livia takes the floor, I'd like to let everybody know that this presentation is actually being recorded. Just so you know, we will have a digital version of the whole presentation once we are done, and we will share it with everybody and most probably post it online as well. Just so you know, Livia, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Do you see my screen?
Yes, you can make it full. You can make it full screen as well. Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Ornella, for the nice presentation, and thank you for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to make this presentation for you, and I hope we'll have a lot of nice discussions after this. So, as Ornella said, I'm doing research at Curie Institute in Paris, and today I will be discussing ethics in medical research with you. So, starting from the definition of ethics, it's a together of norms for conduct that distinguish between what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior. There is this golden rule used today where we should do not do unto others as you'd have them to unto you. It has been widely used in the 17th century, but actually we have data from ancient civilization, from ancient Egypt, Greece, or India, where it was expressed, but in other forms. It was also expressed from mathematicians like Thales in ancient Greece. And the main idea of this expression is to avoid doing to other people, what you wouldn't like to be done to you. It was afterwards, in the 17th century, with Hippocrates, which is also considered the father of ethics, which said the expression primum non nocere. It's the same that is used today. It is used today from the medical students once they finish the medical school. So I was a little bit shocked, I would say, when I was a kid, from the image that the scientist was given to the society. It was this personage of mad, antisocial genius. I think all of us will remember the novel and know the novel of Shelley's, written in 1818, where Dr. Frankenstein was creating this monster that actually it was just his creation was somebody who can speak, who can think philosophically, but the problems start when the moral boundaries um, are opened. And also, you maybe won't remember Dr. Herman Barnick, but a lot of you will remember of the film Beethoven, transmitted in 1992, where the personage of Herman Warnick was this doctor who torture animals in order to make experiments on them. Afterwards, more recent films like Gattaca, or also the Dr. DNA, the Jurassic Park, treat other topics in scientific research, like the genetic engineering, opening different discussions. Today, science has been developed so much that things that were treated in Gattaca film, for example, some genetic manipulations, aren't so fantascience anymore, but have become more real. So, should we do scientific research? Which are the good and the bad side of scientific discoveries? Or maybe there isn't any real boundary between them. Maybe there is this, they can be used for good and for bad purposes. There are different examples in history which show that science were used to make bad, to harm people. And we have the use of biological weapons like anthrax or ricin, or the use of chemical weapons, like especially during the First World War. And here I took the example of the mustard gas, which killed a lot of people. And also, in the same time, science was used of a tool of torture. On the other hand, there are a lot of examples where science has helped people to make better lives. Like we have the use of the discovery of painkillers and anesthetics, which is widely used today, or the discovery of vaccines, the discovery of antibiotics. There are a lot. I just took few of them, but there are a lot of inventions which have made the life of people much better. So, as Einstein says, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. There were moments when, for example, during the First World War, when this mustard gas was used. Afterwards, we have examples when this invention was used in order to develop an anti-cancer chemotherapy. So, in this case, even in chemicals which were used for bad purposes, a good purpose was found. We have also, unfortunately, the opposite example where the discovery, the big discovery from Einstein, which puts together in relation the energy with the mass, which was used to invent the atomic bomb, which caused a lot of deaths. So the question is, which are other examples which are in the middle of these good and bad uses of scientific discoveries? But I will come back to that afterwards. So first, we should consider that the possession of knowledge carries an ethical responsibility. Those who have the tools to get to know, to have more knowledge about a specific topic, have also the responsibility to use this knowledge for good purposes. So from a mixture of curiosity and knowledge comes the scientific discovery. And this scientific discovery brings innovation. Once new discoveries are made, there are some short-term consequences which we can imagine once we have these innovations. And there are long-term consequences which can be object of discussion for most of the time. So which are these exactly? Coming back to the previous schema, we were in the middle of the intersection of the good and the bad side of scientific discoveries. So here come the long-term consequences of scientific discoveries. And with ethical discussion comes the question, is it right or is it wrong? I'm presenting for you today two examples of genetic engineering, and we will be discussing them afterwards together. So first of all, I decided to take the cloning and to discuss it with you. From definition, cloning is the process which takes genetic information from a somatic cell, the nucleus from the somatic cell, and it transfects it to a living organism, to an egg cell. Afterwards, from electroshock, this cell grows and comes to a morula stage in 72 hours and transforms afterward in blastocysts. These blastocysts then can be used for reproductive use of cloning or can be used for therapeutic purposes. So, coming back to history, in 1885, Hans Piemann cloned for the first time sea urchins and salamanders. And in 1984, it was cloned the first animal, a sheep. Today, we use cloning to clone organs, to use it in gene therapy in order to fix ill genes. It can also be used to produce pharmaceuticals. For example, the most common technique to produce, there are different techniques to produce proteins, and one of these is, for example, bacterial expression. There are some kind of human proteins which are better expressed in human cells, but it can be even better when we can express them directly. We can produce them directly using techniques as cloning. The other use, which is object of different discussions, is the reproductive use. So the cloning of animals and lately of humans. So there are two parts. There is this balance of between the right and wrong. So deciding which is right and which is wrong. From one side, cloning could be very useful in science because by cloning different organs, we can avoid waiting lists for people who want to have a transplant. And also, we can make this new organ with a higher compatibility for patients. So it can, because a lot of times there is the problem of compatibility between patients and the donor. So other positive parts of the cloning can be that it can repaint the human body. It can make new skin cells for burned victims, for example, or in people which have brain damage. We can produce healthy brain cells, and it can also be used to treat other diseases like Parkinson, diabetes, or Alzheimer's. The other part of cloning, the one which is used when cloning animals or humans, comes against some religious beliefs, and also there is a loss of individuality in the people because they will be copies of the donor of the one from which the somatic cell will be taken, and this brings different discussion, and it's illegal because of this reason. The other technique, which has also been discussed a lot lately, especially in 2018, is the CRISPR-Cas9. It was a revolution in the world of scientific discovery because they're called also like the scissors of DNA, because throughout this technique, we can cut different parts of the DNA, the targeted DNA, and eliminate an ill gene, a gene which we don't want to be there, or we can fix it. We can edit it by adding another gene instead of it. So while this was used only in cell and in laboratories, it was fine until 2018, when it was the first application in humans by the Chinese doctor Zhang Hui. This caused very big ethic polemics. So, which is the problem with this? First of all, I will start with the wrong part of the use of CRISPR-Cas9 this time. So when we use this technique to make precise changes in genes or of organisms, what we affect is the changes that we bring to these more complex organisms are sometimes unexpected. So it is the case also with the twins that were produced in laboratory using these techniques, from which it was deleted the gene which codified from HIV. In this case, these two twins, which are human beings, will be object of study during their whole life, and also this may affect their health in the future. These are some points which cannot be really known. While using CRISPR-Cas9 in industry, or also for study uses in laboratory, it can be really useful. It is a technique which was it is used by bacteria to eliminate viruses, infection from viruses, and by using it in industry, we could improve culture sustainability and lifespan. Yeah.
Livia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Livia, that is 15 minutes. I know you have a lot more going on, right?
No, it's not a lot more going on. I can just, it's more about conclusions. But...
Let me give you another minute and then we can wrap up, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
So just to put together what I was saying, science in itself is not evil, but it can be used for both beneficial or harmful ways. If the desire of control, of greed and self-interest are on the top, the scientific discoveries are affected, and this shouldn't happen. Also, ethics is used to guide scientific discoveries, but sometimes these issues are often subjective, so are open to discussions. Also, I wanted to remind the managing of COVID-19 situations in Albania and in other countries. So the ethical issues which are related to vaccination, which people should have the vaccine first, which afterwards, and also in Albania, what happened during this time, some scientific misinformation, the topic of herd immunity, which we tried also to treat with a group of scientific Albanians, where I'm part of, and also the fact that for now in Albania we don't have a sequence of virus genome, and this would help to understand how the virus is spreading and to evaluate how effective the interventions have been up to now. So the world is in our hands, and it's our responsibility to take care of it. Thank you.
Renee, you wanna take it away?
Yes.
Thank you, Livia, for this nice presentation, especially when it comes to CRISPR, because since it is used now in sequencing the DNA, if I'm not mistaken, of the coronavirus. I have a question, especially regarding this. Do you think that besides the bad things that you mentioned, what are some other good things that this technology have provided us?
So for now, it has been used in industry, and the uses in industry to make cultures more sustainable are the uses for now. And also in laboratories, we use it very often in order to study different mechanisms in cells and in microorganisms. And maybe in the future it will be also used in medical research, but for now it is not. We don't have the right information to apply it to human beings, so this is completely unethical. Do you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Any question from the general public?
Ornella, if I just wanted to say that if you'd like to ask a question, you can actually either raise your hand on the upper right corner. There is a hand icon, or you can write your question at the chat function. It's no problem. We will address it there. So.
Yeah. Okay, I think there is no question. If there is no question, I think we can move on with the next presentation. Thank you very much, Livia.
Thank you, Livia.
The next presentation comes from Taulant Muka. Taulant Muka is a medical doctor and epidemiologist, associate professor, leading the cardiometabolic research group at the Institute of Social and Preventive Medicine at University of Bern in Switzerland. He received his PhD from Erasmus Medical Center in the Netherlands and trained further in epidemiology in Cambridge and Harvard University. He has a broad interest in cardiometabolic health, with particular interest in the role of omics data and sex differences in improving prevention and precise care in cardiometabolic disease, such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. He integrates knowledge from different disciplines and approaches that include epidemiology, population-based studies, systematic reviews and meta-analysis, nutrition, epigenetics, sex differences, reproductive health, cardiometabolic disease, and the pharmaceutical industry to manage interdisciplinary projects. He has published over 95 peer-reviewed articles, and you can find them in his Google Scholar, co-authored 3 books in Elsevier in epigenetics, and supervised over 20 master's, MD, and PhD students. His scientific work has been covered in many prestigious media, such as BBC, CNN, Reuters, The Times of London, and the New York Times. Thank you, Taulant.
Ornella, thank you very much for the kind presentation, and Yanel also for the invitation. I hope you can see my slides, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, I mean, in the next 50 minutes, I'm going to talk about the education that brings society to its knees. And actually, that's the case of our country, or at least how I think. But also want to make sure that these are my own thoughts and do not represent a third party. So it is striking to see the results of a recent study published last year, if I'm not wrong. And it shows the percentage of young people 18 to 24 years old when it comes to employment, being in employment, education, or training. And it's striking to see that our country, Albania, is among the countries with the highest youth being engaged in employment, education, or training, with 33, almost 1 in 3 young people not being in none of this. And actually, we know also from experiences, from what we see in the media, from also research that shows that lots of educated young people from in Albania having masters, PhDs, that they actually work in call centers. And this also tells you that there is something going wrong. What maybe our diplomas or the diplomas the Albanian universities are providing are not at the level we would want it to, and which also has an impact later on the future of young people. And actually, if we look at the data on the research output in Eastern Europe, so in blue you can see the number of articles, in orange the number of citations, and age index, which is a measure of quantity and quality of research. We can see actually that Albania is the last when it comes to number of published articles, number of citations, and also when it comes to age index. And this actually tells a lot about the level of our university. And I assume from what I could see from the names, but also from the previous presentation, among us listening this presentation today, are lots of researchers, and we know that a difference between a university and high school is exactly research, and our country is not doing that good when it comes to research. And actually, if we see at the data of 2018 of number of public, yes.
If I can 1 second. We see your first slide, but we don't see your presentation.
Ah, okay. Well, sorry.
You didn't.
Now?
Yep. Okay. Now I can. Yes.
Also,
yes.
sorry. Then I was in the slides. These are the data when it comes to Web of Science 2018. And we see the number of publications per 10,000 inhabitants. And we see that if we compare the countries in the Balkans, we see that Albania is doing worse when it comes to the number of publications per 10,000 inhabitants, being lower than Bosnia-Herzegovina, Northern Macedonia, Montenegro, and Serbia. But also all these countries taken together, if you compare to the Western Europe, still the Balkan region is doing the worst, but with Albania being the lowest when it comes to number of publication. And something interesting to see is when it comes to the age index. So as I mentioned before, age index is a measure of quality and quantity of scientific output. And if you compare Albania, that has 2.9 million individuals, during the last 20 years has a age index of 49, and that's number is similar to Montenegro, which has a little bit more than 500,000 people, inhabitants. It's half than Macedonia, but also if we compare to a university in Serbia, it's at similar range. And the age index of 49 is half of an Albanian scientist in Germany, Adnan Kastradi, who has age index of 96. So that tells a lot when it comes to the how much our science in our country is valuable, and it's comparable or even lower to one individual Albanian, very successful Albanian scientist in Germany. And this is also a TED talk that I provided 2 years ago. Whoever is interested can listen to my talk where I provide more information on this topic. And actually, we all know that when it comes to the career path in academia, from being a student to junior researcher and then going to professor, it takes a long time, and on average, more than 15 to 17 years. And what defines this path to go from a student to professor, it's publications which first started first author, and as you become more senior, you move towards last authorship. It's important to get grants, and all together define your way towards becoming a professor or not. At least this is the Western approach to how somebody in academia can move from junior researcher to a professor position. However, let's see what happens in our country. So these are the data when it comes to academic titles, associate professor and professor in Albania from the year 2008 to 2016. You can see actually that when it comes to the highest number of academic titles allocated, the highest numbers are around the year 2011 and 2015. And actually, these are the years where the local elections occur. So, I mean, knowing our background, we can also suggest that maybe there is a relation between the academic titles that are allocated and elections. On the other hand, before 2018, there was a law when it comes to academic titles, which actually, in order to become associate professor, assistant professor, or professor, you needed publications with impact factor. And actually, 58% of these academic titles that were allocated from 2008 to 2016, they didn't have any publication in journals with impact factor. 74% of people who received these titles didn't have a publication as first author in Web of Science or Scopus, which are bibliographic databases that index the best journals in the world. There are also some journals that maybe do not properly qualify. And also 60, I mean, from a research that I did when it comes to University of Medicine, we found that 60% of academic staff there have some familiar connections. So these data, although are like just descriptive data, it tells a lot about first that there could be a connection between academic titles obtained and elections, And we know, at least from experience, that universities in Albania are used also to recruit students to political parties. And on the other hand, the law was not respected when it comes to the criteria somebody would need to obtain an academic title of associate professor or professor. And on the other hand, as I mentioned before, when you are junior, you publish as first author and then you move towards last authorship. But apparently, 70% of these academic titles of associate and professor position, they didn't have a publication as first author. And that tells a lot about the quality of the academic titles we have been awarding in Albania. And in order to make it a little bit, to do some more investigation on it, in a national media, I showed the story of my two grandmothers. So as you can see in the photo, the grandmother from my mom's side and from my dad's side. And I wrote an article with fake data, which didn't make sense, not very well written. And I submitted it in 5 journals where the medical professors, so the professor at the Faculty of Medicine or University of Medicine, were publishing the most. And actually was striking to see that within 24 to 48 hours, almost all journals accepted the publication. I just needed to pay a fee, but also this tells that where some professors in Albania, a majority, are publishing their papers are predatory journals. And therefore, there is something wrong going with the academic progress in our country. And during the investigation, I looked also at University of Tirana, and these are the publications according to Scopus from 1981 to 2018. And you can see that the highest number of publication was around 2014. And you could really, as a researchers, we are curious. So I was thinking, how come it's possible this high number of publications in 2014? I didn't know that there was any increase in research support from the government at this period. And actually, I looked at the journals where the academics at University of Tirana were publishing, and these are the ones that you see in the screen are the 5 most important journals they were publishing. And the one that took my attention is Mediterranean Journal of Social Sciences. And actually, when I was looking further, I found out that this journal was part of a scandal in Africa, where lots of professors there were using the journal to obtain academic titles. And actually, the journal, although was claiming to be produced in Italy, it was produced in Tirana, according to the investigation. And according to the law, you needed international publication to obtain an academic title. But being produced in Albania, I don't think this should be entitled as an international journal. And especially because you could publish there almost everything. And another important parameter to see is when it comes to the rectors and deans and their scientific outputs. And these are the scientific output of rectors before the new election, so of 2015 to 2019. And you can see that most of them, a majority of them, they don't have any publication as first or last author in in-text journals. And sometimes you would wonder, like, how come is that possible? Because if we see the Western universities, most of the rectors or deans are eminent figures in science. And then you would wonder what's happening with our country, that in the head of our universities, we are selecting people who do not have any strong academic background. There were only few universities whose rector were having some scientific outputs. And this was also the case when it comes to the deans, for instance, of the Faculty of Medicine and also University of Tirana. And if you compare to the Western world, you could see that the level of rectors and deans and professors in Albania is equivalent to a master or PhD student when it comes to academic track. And that could also tell us about how we see universities in general in Albania, and maybe why our diplomas are not having available, they are not having any value in the Western world. And we need to, I mean, if you finish, let's say, economic, you need to redo your studies if you'd go to Netherlands or other countries. And that's something we need to look in the future. Another important finding of the research I was doing was that only 8% of scientific products come from private universities. So the majority of the, even though little scientific output was coming from public universities, but last year we are providing the private universities the right to allocate academic titles. And I'm not sure that is the right approach considering what has happened before, and even allowing more and more, including here private universities, to provide academic titles as PhDs, associate professors, and professors. And actually here are some of the names in the academic science, National Academic Science of Albania. And these are some members of some committees, scientific committees that are within this National Academic of Science of Albania. And you can see that the majority of these people, who should be the most eminent scientific figures of a country, they don't have any publication, even when it comes to the heads of the National Academic of Science. And then, I mean, as a researcher, I would ask, how come we are called, I mean, how come we are at this level? And how come we call a member of a National Academic of Science or an academic somebody who doesn't have any scientific record? And of course, some data should be looked with caution, because there are certain areas that maybe they are not indexed in high impact journals, but some of them are from biology, medicine, mathematics, where they should have international scientific output. And then during 2018, but also later on, I showed some plagiarisms in our country of prominent figures, including here former Vice Minister of Education. And these are scientific articles that are 100% copy-paste. As you can see, there is no change in the wording, there is no change in the numbers, but it's just 100% copy-paste. And the more I was, for instance, this is the original article is in English, and then the article is in Albanian, and it's just a Google Translate of the English article. And the more I was digging with, searching more, the more I was finding that this was not just an isolated case, but together with a colleague of mine, we showed that there are lots of prominent politicians, rectors, deans, who have plagiarized articles, PhDs, and this could be very widespread in our country and needs an investigation, to my opinion. And also, for instance, recently, together with my colleague, we showed that even the current Vice Minister of Education, but also the Minister of Education, they have plagiarized article. And I'm not sure whether when it comes to being represented in science by people who have copied is the right approach in our country. And I think this needs a huge reflection of the entire society. And another problem in Albania is that we work with very old books. For instance, here is a book in Faculty of Engineering where they mentioned the Communist Party. So the book is as old as me. I mean, is even older than me, and it is not being updated with new knowledge. And this is a huge problem when it comes to the level of literature students in Albania are reading. And when it comes to PhDs, the level of PhDs that we are allocating that are very low level, it has also an economic impact. For instance, I took a case of a professor in Faculty of Justice in Albania who allocated 40 PhD during the last 4 or 5 years. And actually, he gets money from these 40 PhDs. So 40 PhDs get converted to around 60,000 euro that he gets for the work he has done. In case these people are working in the public sector, they get an increase in salary, which means that if these 40 PhD or doctorants get hired in public sector, they get around, you have to pay 80,000 euro or 85,000 euro more, so you spend from the public budget, but actually they don't produce any publication with an impact. And that's something we need to change in the future. And how is possible that we are giving money, but in return, we are not getting any scientific outputs? And
sorry to interrupt. Are we close to the end?
Yeah, this is, I will just close with this slide.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And an important aspect of our country is that we have young people who go abroad. Is the country that has the highest number of young people studying abroad. But actually, nobody or very few get back home. And on the other hand, a majority of people now living in Albania are highly educated people. And that's something we need to change for the future. Well, considering the minutes, I will close here. But that's something to, I mean, all these data show that there is a lot of reflection as a country we need to do. And also what, to my opinion, we should consider is a transformation, a gradual transformation of universities in Albania, providing science an open door in order to improve the current situation in our country. Thank you.
Taulant, thank you. Very interesting presentation. Ornella, I would like to open it for Q&A now. I see, let's see who raises their hand first. Taulant, you can open your...
Yes, I will open my camera.
Okay. Okay, we have one hand raised, which is Christy Vako. Christy, you can unmute yourself. Okay.
Thank you very much, Taulant, for your presentation. I find it very, very good.
Kirsty, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
I did it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Taulant, for your presentation. It was a very nice presentation and very interesting, I would say. And you touched 2 points that I am very interested to ask you more about that. The first point is the copy PhDs or scientific work, which is a very big problem in Albania. What kind of strategy do you propose as a scientific researcher to eliminate this problem in Albania, since the problem is not only that we copy the PhDs from other people from other scientists in English language or German language or Italian language, but we also translate them into Albanian, which makes it more difficult to catch the thief in this case. And the second question, you touched the matter of the scientific researchers that are in the Western countries or in other countries in the world from Albania, which do a very specific work and a very plausible work, and our state, our country, doesn't have the possibility to profit from this scientific work which these people, these new scientists do in respective countries. Is there a strategy that the Albanian state should use in this case in order to profit from this wisdom that Albania achieved in other countries? Since you have been also the Vice Minister of Education, maybe you can elaborate more on this question. Thank you very much.
Christy, thanks a lot for the two excellent questions. For the first, I think that we need a screening, but especially first starting with the top. So if you have the head of departments that doesn't have the criteria to fulfill for being a professor or associate professor, then it's impossible to make a reform of the system. Imagine a very highly educated young person who is abroad, having lots of scientific output, and gets back to Albania having a head of department who doesn't know anything about the science. Of course, he will be blocked, limited, and therefore he will not show his potential. And that, of course, will lead towards him or her living abroad. And we have lots of examples as this. So that would be my, like the same way as we have done with the legal system. We try to screen especially the heads. And then once we change the heads, then I'm sure that the person who has high integrity and scientific output as a head, he will make the transformation slowly because this is a huge problem and at large scale. When it comes to the second question, yes, Albania has a huge potential when it comes to the people who are educated and living abroad. And there should be a brain gain policy and the government should make in the future lots of investments in this area. Without high level of education, you cannot transform our country, you cannot make good doctors, you cannot make good economists, good journalists, and so on. And that is my suggestion. The governments, whichever the government is, should increase the finances when it comes to research and also in supporting young people to come in Albania. With those salaries, it's very hard at the first, and second, with that system not working and not being supported by the government, lots of researchers out abroad will be not motivated to come back.
We have another one that has questioned. Linda Pustina, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, please. Thank you.
Linda, we can't hear you. I think you are muted.
Yes.
Okay, I think we can move on with the next person who raised his hand, because Linda, we cannot hear you. And
Linda, maybe you can write it in the chat.
yeah,
We have around or Linda.
oh, okay. Erand, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the organizers that had the courage to organize such a bold presentation on a topic that is really, really relevant. And it will be relevant also for the futures. And I know that Tauland has been a champion of anti-plagiarism in Albania and very vocal about this. But on a personal note, I just want to honestly ask, because maybe people from the ministry or ACSI are listening here, and we can influence decision, and you know that, Tauland. So what do you think amid the pandemic, and at the same time you showed the figures that the patient, Albania, is almost 74% dead academically wise. So what is your prospect? Are you optimistic about this? How do you see this?
Thanks a lot also for the kind words. My suggestion is that we don't need lots of universities, or there can be lots of universities as there are now, but we need a champion university in Albania, a university that produces the new leaders in all fields, for instance, like University of Tirana. And we need to make a huge transformation of that, and for that we need political investments from both, from left, right, it doesn't matter. So that's a pact we need to do as a nation, to invest on a very good quality university that can produce the leaders of the tomorrow. And it doesn't matter if you have other bad universities. I mean, we are in democracy, but as far as we do also the proper ranking, and we make sure that we have a university that could produce the new leaders for 3 million people we are in Albania, I think we can we would be happy. And I hope that comes with time.
We have a few more questions as well. Linda, can you hear us now, and can you unmute yourself? Perfect.
Can you hear me now? Okay. My microphone wasn't activated and I wasn't possible it was not possible to activate it. So thank you very much to the organizer for this very interesting event, and thank you to Tauland for an interesting presentation. So what I was wondering to say is that obviously I totally agreed with the screening that Tauland said, and we need a vetting in the higher education and in research in order to understand who are the person that have gained the title in the proper way, or at least following the legal request that have been at that time when they gained this title, in order to screen between people that gain this title in the right way and people that gain this title bypassing let's say the legal framework. This is very important because I also think, I have not the statistics, but I also think that before the elections, we have, if someone will do a graphic, a picture, we'll see that before the elections, we have raise in the number of titles and scientific grades given within the universities. And now it is time to afford this issue because we are talking from a lot till now for this, and it is the time to afford this issue also legally based. And what I think also is that people from diaspora, we need them because we have a lot of very prepared people in diaspora, scientists, and also professionals that are needed in Albania. Obviously, a brain gain process is not easy because they already have their professions, their families there, and it is not so easy for them to come back in Albania. But what we are thinking is a brain circulation process. So using in a certain way their minds, their experience in different fields in order to bring to Albania new ideas, new contributes also in the research fields. For this reason, the Prime Minister Office is organizing a platform for brain circulation in the framework of the smart specialization strategy that is being also hoping that we will have it soon in some months. This would be a good opportunity to bring together the professionals from different fields and also the academics and researchers from different countries, Albanians in diaspora, in order to have an added voice on this process. And I really believe that scientists and professionals from diaspora would give to society in Albania really a good opportunity to change the situation where we are now. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I fully agree with Linda, and I'm very happy to see that initiative coming, and especially if we consider that the per current professors we have, a majority of them will retire soon. So this is a perfect time for us to make a change, and I hope that comes soon because there are lots of potentials abroad that could be used.
Okay, thank you, Linda. We have other people who has raised their hand. Armila Panayoti is one of them, and afterwards Christian Savdari.
Ornella, we have 3 more.
Thank you.
For Q&As, huh? Just a reminder, 3 more minutes.
Okay, I'll try. I'll try to be quick.
Thanks.
Okay, my question is again related to screening. Thank you, Tauland, for your presentation. I was wondering how the screening will take place in Tauland's view, or can take place in his view. I mean, this is the heart of the problem, because we are talking about the system. We are adopting quite a structuralist approach here. Then we need some outside perspective. I mean, who will do the screening? Who is to judge who has more academic integrity than the others? So that is my worry. How can we tackle the problem to the root? I mean, I agree that there is a problem, but I also agree that this is not our problem only. I mean, as one of the guests was commenting here in the chat box, this is a widespread problem, and not only in Albania, but also in the Balkans. One thing I find problematic, culturally speaking, is also what we teach people at a very early age. I mean, as a parent, I can see that we are not cultivating a culture of anti-plagiarism or of academic integrity. Think about the tasks we give young kids. They are copy-paste. So, I mean, it's all about how we approach academic integrity, how much we know about it. It's about raising awareness from a very young age and then moving up to professorship and all that. But still my worry is who will do the screening? Who is to say you've got more integrity than the other? I don't know if I got my point right.
Armeda, that's a very good question, and I don't have the correct answer. But when I was a Vice Minister of Education, I suggested to create a committee that is of Albanian scientists abroad that do not have a conflict of interest because they are not inside the system. And my opinion was to check at the legal requirements because that's the easiest way to check. So the legal requirement tells you that you should have scientific publications in impact factor journals. And there's an easy way to start screening. And then you could discuss further how to proceed. Another option is that, for instance, you could go towards a transformation of a university, let's say University of Tirana, like it was the case of University of Medicine, that allows you to make changes of the current positions. And then defining very suitable criteria who has how or to open positions with very well-defined scientific criteria. And especially to my opinion, it has to come from the top. So the head of departments, the head of clinics, and so on. Because in case they are not on the quality they should be, then it's very, it's impossible for the rest to make a change.
Yeah, I get the point, but still my question is who?
Yeah,
it's not about the criteria. I mean, the criteria are all fine. Yeah. It's about the who. It's not about.
But that's, I mean, that's some. I remember also when I was there, that needs discussion. That needs discussion and needs to be very well thought. To my opinion, we should not rush. It can be a process of 1, 2, or 3 years, but that defines the future of universities in Albania.
Sure. I totally agree. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Christian. You can ask your questions now. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Tadan, for your presentation. It was quite nice. But my question raised up when Linda Cristina, I think, was the one speaking. And personally, I'm being involved into research, but from abroad for my home country. So I'm living in Denmark and I'm doing research in Albania privately into the power systems and renewable energy sources. And what I found very hard is to collaborate with public and private entities, like the OSHA or Operatori Shpërndarjes Transmetimi. And I have a question because I think Linda is part of the government. Why does this or why do these companies don't like research? And when this research is not, they are not spending any money. So they just need to give you some data, and then you are doing your research based on funds or external funds from Denmark, my case, or from Polytechnic University in Albania. So should we incentivize these public entities or later on even private companies to go into research? For example, private entities to go into research, and they based on their inputs or based on their money that they provide into research, then they might have some tax cuts later on, or the public entities to be more flexible towards research. Thank you.
Okay, I can answer to Christian. Thank you, Christian, for your question. It's not a matter of like or not like to do research in the different institutions. I think it's a matter of organization in general of the system of research in Albania that needs to be revised. And in fact, there is under evaluation the law on scientific research in Albania, and other initiatives related to innovation. A program on innovation and startups is being under establishment by the Prime Minister Office also. So it is needed a kind of revision of the whole system of research in Albania. And I hope this will help also to your question and also to all the institutions that are involved in the research directly or indirectly in Albania. And I think the platform putting together different, not only academics and researchers in Albania, but also professionals and businesses interested in Albania or abroad to be part of the research or innovation system will help to bring together this interest from you that are in Denmark, from the companies in Albania. That is, for them, it's really difficult to find the contacts, your contacts or someone else's contacts to collaborate for their interest in the research field. So I think that this platform will be the first step for having a different kind of mentality of collaboration in the field of research and professional fields also. And will help all the professionals abroad, the diaspora, that is a huge human capital for Albania, to be in contact and to give their contribution in Albania, being in their country. So I hope we can have the first result of this in the next 6 months, I hope so. And also I want to thank here Erkens, that is, I saw it's part of the today event, that is helping us from a technical point of view, and EU for Innovation project that is covering this very interesting initiative. So I will try to send the news on the starting of this platform to all of you, and I hope you can distribute it to all your friends and colleagues all over the world in order to have an effective and let's say wide this let's say distribution of this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you both for answering the question and asking the question. We have one question also in the chat. The question is related to the fact that the entire region is kind of in the same page, sort of. What can we do to encourage more responsibility and academic integrity at the regional level? These problems are not only widespread across Albania, but also across the Western Balkans. It is, as I said, it's not an Albanian problem. What do you think?
That's true, but also we have to keep in mind that, for instance, Serbia has the University of Belgrade is among the best 500 universities in the world, and Albania is the best university, if I'm not wrong, is ranked 4,000 or 5,000 in the ranking place. So that's a huge difference. It's 10 times difference, and the idea is that we have all the potential, especially Albanians, considering we have Albanians in Kosovo, in Montenegro, in Macedonia, to make a university that could speak Albanian, but also be a key player internationally, and be a key player also in the Western Balkans. And by being competitive, you increase also the level in the Balkans. I mean, for instance, if Albania increases their level of research, I'm sure that this will move also, it will be something that also other countries will play around. And also, to my opinion, we should not focus on quantity. So we provide lots of diploma, and it's very easy to take. I mean, lots of young people have diploma, but we have to focus on quality. So where the diploma is of any value for you to find a job, and also to learn from the years you spend in university.
Absolutely. But what Radenka was mentioning, and also was like part of my question as well, because we are part of the Marie Curie Alumni Association, Western Balkans chapter, and what we do in our chapter is to encourage people in the Balkan region. Although we are not here, we still create events and info sessions and spread awareness about scientific research in the region, and we do that voluntary and as part of the Marie Curie membership, kind of. But what can we do? Everyone, I mean, every researcher in the region that has gone abroad, like the initiative that was created when the COVID pandemic started, that was an individual initiative started in the Netherlands from diaspora here in the Balkans. And we collaborated well until that lasted. However, we have a lot of associations but I think we're not collaborating and trying to change, to make significant change when it comes to scientific research or other problems.
I think we should move on with collaboration, and maybe we should make more networking and create organizations also to make, in good sense, pressure by interacting with the governments, by interacting with the European Union, to make sure that European Union, because I mean, for Albania and all the Balkans to enter into the European Union, also for negotiations, education, criteria in education are very important. And we can play a very important role as a diaspora, considering we are engaged in scientific activities, to make sure that the criteria of Albania are put in place, because that will make sure that we are doing the right investments. I don't have the right answer. It's very, I mean, this is very good platform. So we are here, some people, I mean, speaking openly about the problem. And of course, something also from experience so far, I have learned is that a change takes time. I mean, as Balkans, we want quick changes, but changes take time, and especially if the problem is well rooted for a long time. It has lots of resistance, and the change we need to push should also we should also consider that it takes time.
One last mention here was that the situation here in Albania is that PhDs or research is currently closed. PhDs are closed. I mean, probably the only country in the world that doesn't have, like, you know, innovation and research now is stalled for 7 years.
And speaking about,
that should be the start.
Yes, and
should we start with that?
Yes, exactly. And Aurela, you mentioned COVID. COVID-19 made us very aware as a country that we lack the scientific skills to consider this, to read the science and to take the right measurements. And you could see very young people, researchers, medical doctors, biologists, Albanian abroad, being very present in the media to give advice. We need to invest in bringing or building those skills in Albania. I mean, if I work and live abroad, that's not a skill that Albania has. That's a skill that Switzerland has. I mean, then it's, Albania can use it by engaging us that work and study and work internationally. But first, we need to build skills in Albania. Without building internal skills, I don't think the country will have a bright future.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who participated in this Q&A session. I think we have to move on because we have a few other presentations, but it was very engaging. Thank you, Tauland, and thank you everybody. Okay, we will move on. Unfortunately, one of the presenters was not able to participate in the next presentation because he is a medical doctor and he was in performing his job as a doctor and he couldn't join this webinar. But so we move with the next presenter. Robert Dumi is a representative of the National Agency for Scientific Research and Innovation in Albania. He will talk about the adoption of the European Charter and Code of Researchers in the Albanian context. Thank you, Robert, and the screen is yours.
Ornella, I muted you. Robert, we will give a couple of seconds to Robert. I see him in the group. I see him in the presentation room. Ornella, in case Robert doesn't make it, I think you are ready, right?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Robert, we cannot hear you. Probably you have some microphone issues.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Ornella, I'd like to introduce you next. Can I?
Yes, for
So
sure.
Ornella is a great friend of our program. It's the second event that we are doing with Ornella, and it's with great pleasure that I'd like to introduce her. Ornella is a Marie Curie PhD fellow and an applied artificial intelligence in medicine, and a researcher focused in applied artificial intelligence in medicine, focusing on cancer. Ornella, if I am wrong at some point, you can feel free to correct me. Okay.
Yes.
Ornella has
So far, so
conducted
good.
various scientific research in object recognition and image segmentation, and currently in predictive analytics in cancer in Spain, the United States, the Republic of Ireland, and in Finland. Before her PhD, she was part of the joint Erasmus Master Program in Pervasive Computing and Communication for Sustainable Development in France, in Finland, in Russia, and Sweden. During her master's, she founded and co-founded 2 startups in Sweden and Finland, respectively. She finished her bachelor's degree in computer engineering in Albania and the UK. She's an active member of the Marie Curie Alumni Association, where she's one of the founding members and the board member of the MCAA Western Balkans chapter. Ornella organizes events such as this one today to promote scientific research and European grants in Albania and abroad. Ornella, it's with great pleasure that I leave you the floor now. It's all yours.
Thank you, Ned. I'll share my slides now.
All good, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. We all have heard a lot lately about AI and ethics, especially during these times, because of disinformation, image recognition, and things like that. I will discuss a little bit about general topics and some specific ones, use cases, and how to overcome some of these problems. What is covered in AI ethics? When one study was done to collect syllabi of ethics in technology courses online, titled "What Do We Teach When We Teach Tech Ethics?" was found that they included a huge variation across these ethical courses. That includes law and policy, privacy and surveillance, philosophy, justice and human rights, environmental impact, civic responsibility, robotics, disinformation, very important this one, especially during coronavirus, work and labor, design, cybersecurity, research ethics, etc. And these courses are usually taught by professors in different fields, as the coverage of this topic is quite broad. But the unique thing was that what united all of these talks and courses was the outcome of them. The ICO have discovered or have created this framework, and they have specifically found these risk areas that include fairness and transparency in profiling, that includes biases and discrimination, explainability in AI decisions, accuracy, which covers both accuracy in data that is used, but is also data that is derived, fully automated decision-making models. Sometimes we have decision-making systems that are not fully automated, and sometimes we have decision-making systems that are non-fully automated systems. That means that we need experts in each domain that we are using these models. Security and cyber, this includes re-identification risk, verification challenges, outsourcing risk, etc. Trade-offs, this covers the balancing between different optimization constraints that use these AI models, such as, for example, accuracy and privacy. When we want to increase the accuracy, most of the research has shown that people use more data. But with more data, that shows an increased risk of more private information being vulnerable. Data minimization and purpose limitation. This might be also in the case of accuracy and privacy, depending on what we want to search and the hypothesis that we have. We might not want to include more data just because we need more data, but we need to use the data that the problem at hand requires. Exercising the rights, and this includes the right for accessing the data that we share, the right to be forgotten, data portability, and these are all included in the GDPR that was recently put in place and used. Impact on broader public interests and rights, and we saw this also during these times, during this year, when a lot of facial recognition systems were used to identify people protesting in America, but also in Hong Kong and other countries. From now on, I will share some use cases where AI has failed in a way the systems that they've used. In this case, we have the recently mutant algorithm, like Boris Johnson called it, where an algorithm was used to predict the scores, the grades of the students in UK. And usually these algorithms are kind of black boxes. And in most of the use cases, we are not aware how these systems score an applicant, for example, in a job interview, or an applicant for a mortgage loan, etc. But in the case of students, the students were very well aware what grades did they get before this algorithm predicted their grades. However, in the education, we have the use of a grading system, a scoring system for teachers that was used well before this algorithm in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 2010. And what this algorithm did was that it was scoring and actually firing some very good professors, teachers in high school and also primary school in US, while these teachers were, as I said, they were good at what they were doing because they were praised by other supervising boards when they were teaching. However, the algorithm predicted that they should be fired, and a lot of teachers were fired. This is another article that a very famous and voice in ethical AI have written an opinion about Cathy O'Neill, and I would also recommend her book, Weapon of Mass Distraction. And she says exactly that some people lack the information and power they need to recognize and address the problems that these algorithms have, because they don't have the knowledge and also the sources to have the information that what these algorithms do. However, the students, in the case of 2020, they knew. And that's why the algorithm is not used anymore. And after that, the teachers were grading the students however they saw appropriate, due considering their previous exams and also grades. Besides ethical problems in education, we have also in medicine. There are a lot of studies done not only with Fitbit and Samsung, but also in systems where a robot or a chatbot, in this case, they predict wrong diagnosis for female or dark-skinned patients. In banking, we have also problems there. Besides the loan scores and mortgage scores as well, we have, there was a recent tweet about Apple Card, where one very famous coder, he's also the inventor of Ruby on Rails program, David Hansen, he wrote this tweet, this thread to Apple Card, demanding information how they score people on their credit score, because apparently he had a worse credit score compared to his wife. However, his wife had a lower availability of this money compared to him, although she would also pay quite in advance the charges. This shows that the biases are well ingrained in not only in people's, but also in the systems that they use, and that is because of the data that they have used, historical data they have used to train these models. We will touch upon these biases in a bit. Another very big problem is facial recognition. According to dictionary and Cambridge dictionary as well, there are different definitions of facial recognition, but the two main cases of how we use facial recognition is either we use them as features to recognize in a person, or we search through full database for the image of that person. So we either use as biometrical system or as a searching system. We have facial recognition problems across the globe, and here in the Balkans as well. And we might have it here in Albania. I'm not aware of it, but considering how the governments usually implement these systems, they might disclose them well after they have implemented them. We saw problems in Hong Kong. We saw problems in US, where they use these systems to monitor and to track people who were protesting. There are various articles actually about how some of the protesters exactly tricked these algorithms to not recognize them by using various artistic decorative facial paintings or masks or even sunglasses. And we have a very big problem here in the Balkans, in Serbia, where the government implemented a widespread facial recognition and cameras all over Belgrade with the help of Huawei, a Chinese company, to survey the city. And a lot of people spoke up, and well, let's see how it goes. Oh, sorry. But why is facial recognition that important to not be used, especially at the moment? There are a lot of research done in this, but I wanted to show this example where a researcher at MIT, Joy Bulwanmiwini, sorry for the surname, not very good pronounceable, And Timnit Gebru, one of the pioneers actually in this research area, they discovered that in various databases, all of the databases were more than 70%, if not even higher than that, white people represented in them. And for this reason, most of these algorithms, they perform quite well in lighter skinned men than in women. And then it's even worse with women of darker skin. And that shows that the usage of such systems is actually quite dangerous and not ethical. You can have more information about this in gendershades.org. It's really quite interesting. And actually, there is also research that is published in one of the prestigious scientific journals that is done differentiating between the use. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. I thought I lost.
We are short
Okay.
on time, but you can take another minute, Ornella.
Yeah, okay. So there is this research that was done. They created a system, an algorithm to differentiate between Uyghur people in China, people from Tibet, and other ethnicities in China. And as we know, in China at the moment, they are actually detaining a lot of Uyghur people for educational purposes. And the paper, the scientific paper, is still in the journal, and they're not retracting it, which is for a lot of researchers, the idea that people are using such things and they are publishing at the same time in scientific research, and they are accepting, is quite mind-boggling. Privacy International, they have done a lot of research, especially when it comes to border control. They are using a lot of the artificial intelligence there, especially as the third point, stating that EU are actually funding some of these and training some of these people that are in countries that are not very good with when it comes to how they treat people, in order to stop either immigration or to facilitate deportation without adequate risk assessments, which is quite bad. And they are using also to monitor and to deport foreign students, detention of immigrants as well, and also invasive drone surveillance. And that shows that AI is being used everywhere. However, we don't know yet if they actually work as well as they claim to be working. There are some very interesting TED Talks also about AI and democracy. And this is because of some systems that we call recommender systems that are used widely in Facebook, YouTube, and Google, and many others. And this system, what they do is that they show whatever you want to see basically in your profile, or based on the data that you have shared with such websites, example in Facebook. And they keep you in that bubble, and you don't get to know exactly what is happening around you. We use the same websites, for example, Facebook. However, what I see is different from what you see. And this happened with Brexit. with US presidential elections in 2016. This happened also in Brazil, in Myanmar as well, which in Myanmar was even worse, because with Brexit there were no war involved, or with presidential elections in US. However, in Myanmar, these Facebook ads and these Facebook posts, they involved a war. People started to complain about, and not only complain, but actually killing Muslim Myanmar people, and that is actually not good. One of the main problems was hiring this Cambridge Analytica company that profiled people politically to understand how their individual fears, these people fears, and target them with Facebook ads by illicitly harvesting profiles of more than 87 million people. And we all know that what happened with Cambridge Analytica, and we have seen a lot of documentaries. If not, I would highly suggest to watch them. And we can also see that how these recommender systems can radicalize people. With the latest, the Social Dilemma documentary. But I would also recommend listening to the Rabbit Hole podcast, quite interesting, although we might know some people who have been kind of polarized according to what they see in their Facebook profile. And we've seen this especially with conspiracy theorists, not only with COVID, but also with climate change and other conspiracy theorists like the Pizzagate, for example, in US. How we mentioned a little bit about biases. However, in the different stages of the algorithm training, testing, and deployment, we insert biases in every step. Usually, to train the models, we have the data. And the data that we have now is based on the data that we have collected from the time that we started collecting the data until now. And so some of this data is already biased, because before, women were not very common to get a degree or to work or to be in high position rankings in companies. So we lack the data, or the data is missing, or the data is not actually full. So we use this data to predict what is going to happen. However, this data itself is not good. We have representation biases, and with this, I include, for example, the faces databases that we have currently. We have more white men pictures than we have other minorities or the rest of the population. What we can do is to have a balanced database. We have also measurement biases, and that depends on what kind of information variables we actually pick and choose to predict certain or to classify certain databases and data.
Ornella, I hate to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Gone too much beyond.
Okay. Yeah, I can close it now, and I can come with some. So what we can do is actually raise the governance and accountability, and we can do that to hire diverse workforce and also to provide opportunities to uncover and address existing discrimination in traditional decision-making process by including these AI systems that might discover more of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ornella. Any questions for Ornella before we move on to Robert from NASRI? Yes, Taulant, please.
For the nice presentation, I have a question when it comes to artificial intelligence. Are we overdoing it? Because that's the problem with everything. We overdo. And that's why we see also problems.
There, I had included some kind of because before we thought about artificial intelligence just as robots. We're thinking that the robots will overcome the human population, they will kill us and blah, blah, blah. However, now it's not only about robots. It's actually because we use this quite widespread. To find a job, every company nowadays uses algorithms. But how are these algorithms trained? Well, with previous data, and previous data shows that women were not very much into workplace before. And we can overcome this by balancing our database or removing, if the male population is overrepresented in the database, we can remove those and we can balance the database. The other thing is that when we deploy any algorithm, we have to have also in mind the security and privacy. Most of these issues are kind of like at the back of the mind, but not actually implemented. And there are people who have been working on how to overcome this risk. And one thing is to use containers. There's virtual machines actually, instead of using your machine, that's your computer. And the other thing is that when we use certain programming languages when we implement these models, and it's usually a Python or other mainstream ones. However, Python, for example, is less secure. And when we test and train, then when it comes to deploy, we use Python. But when it comes to deployment, for example, we use another more secure, friendly programming, such as Java, for example. Yeah. And so at the beginning, it was quite a new situation because engineers, we are not trained to see ethical dilemmas.
Yes.
And lots of people were not taking responsibilities. They were saying that it's not our fault because, well, it's the fault of the government because they haven't said that we have to take care of this and this. And people should be always there. And people should always be the last decision makers when it comes to, especially in medicine, but also in other aspects, such as in justice systems, for example, in policing, and in prisons, for example. The person should be especially trained for that kind of domain. So we should have domain experts, not like a general person that knows a little bit of everything, but more that is specific to that area. And then depending on the person, and also the companies and the government or the organization should allow them to speak about these problems in the organization. If the algorithm says so, but the person is not 100% secure that the outcome is like that, then of course they should listen to the person. But that sometimes comes to not some nice feedback. And one last example was, for example, in Google 2 weeks ago when Timid Gebru was fired because she wanted accountability and openness in the process. So yeah, we have those as well. There is a long way to go.
I agree.
But hopefully it will go in the right direction.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Ornella.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ornella. We have Eran, and then Robert can take over.
Okay.
Eran?
Thank you, Ornella. It is nice that I see especially female scientists bringing this kind of issues in Albania and popularizing them. and at the same time, I wanted just to make a comment that connects the slide of Livia in the beginning about the ethical dilemma, are we overdoing, and with Tauland comment. I know that there are ethical dilemmas, we are aware, but I can shift the focus on some area that perhaps we can think that artificial intelligence, I call it the director, is let's suppose it's focused on something that is really relevant to all of us without any ethical dilemma. For instance, 1 week ago, AlphaFold DeepMind is able to understand and know and predict the folding of the protein and the shape of the protein just by the amino acid sequence. And we have been trying for months now, and perhaps Livia knows because she was with proteins. It's such a messy job, and sometimes it works, sometimes the machine blocks. But now I think we can revolutionize with the director this kind of field. And at the same time, regarding Ornella's thing that about the government, that some complain about the government and regulatory bodies, but I think that business and innovation moves a little bit fast about this. I've never heard in my life that a government did something like iPhone or I don't know, some innovation. Usually it's the businesses, the universities, the startups. And it's really good to hear from some of the presenter or commenter here that there is a government, actually an Albanian government initiative that wants to promote startups. And I think that in closing this, just to say that the AI issue should still stay on the waters of the public debate until it goes to the regulatory debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say that true that there are good things that, I mean, I'm using AI for good, but we should always have in mind that one technology, one device could be used for bad as well. And that doesn't mean that we should not regulate the area, the study, the AI itself. And we're missing that. Although some initiatives are starting to pop up. Well, we saw with data protection, for example, GDPR, but more work should be done on, for example, to have accountability. If somebody posts something online, or if somebody is using the technology for bad, then the government should do something. There are companies actually taking some matters at the hand, such as Microsoft, IBM, and also Amazon. A little bit later than IBM and Microsoft, they stopped selling the artificial facial recognition systems to the government in US. Amazon said that they will stop for 1 year. Microsoft said for unknown until things get better, and IBM said that they will stop searching, doing research in this topic because it's quite sensitive. And I agree, as we use AI, for example, in AlphaFold, we also use AI for deepfakes, and these deepfakes have gone as far as creating pornographic videos of people who are active voices and activists in certain countries. So as we have good, we have also bad, and I think yes, there should be a lot of regulation, not as much as to stifle the research and innovation, but in that sense that there should be people, for example, should be held accountable for everything that they do, to be honest. Yes.
Thank you. Livia, do you have a question?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Ornella, for a very nice presentation. It's really interesting. I wanted to ask you about one point and also to make a point of what Eran mentioned about AlphaFold, which has been for which it has been talked a lot lately, the ability of this algorithm to predict the structure of proteins starting from their sequence. I think it's really incredible, and it really will affect a lot the structural biology discoveries. But on the other hand, we also need to consider that after all of this development of this algorithm, there must always stand a human entity, a researcher entity, which will analyze and verify these results. And it was really interesting, the example that you gave us, Ornella, with the algorithm to evaluate students, or the one with the heartbeats. I was curious to know, were there any improvement of this algorithm, or they just stopped to being used?
Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't hear it.
These two algorithms that you were talking, was there any improvement for them, or we just stopped using them because they were revealed non-efficient?
Well, usually people, when they create these models, they create with good intentions. However, because these models usually work as black boxes, they don't know the consequences that they happened afterwards when they apply them in mass. So they thought that they were doing good, but in reality, when you don't think through the whole process and you don't kind of realize that some of these also can add some unintentional biases or problems, then that's a problem. That's why you have to think of this since the beginning when you design the model. Some of them are not used anymore, but some of them have been modified. For example, there are some applications in mortgage loans. In US, for example, they used to remove the gender, they used to remove the address. However, they still used to use the zip code, and the zip code in US is, well, quite obvious that certain groups are in certain areas. So the algorithm was still biased because the where that these people were located in that zip code, they knew that in this area, for example, people of African American descent were staying, and in that zip code there were like people, white Caucasian people living. So in that sense, there are still a lot of work to be done and a lot of research to be done. However, I think we are in a nice progress, because 3 years ago we weren't talking about this, and now we are talking a lot of people, and that's a good thing.
All right. Thank you, Ornella. I want to try Robert once more. Ornella, Robert, are you with us?
Okay. I think I am with you.
Okay. Unfortunately, Robert, we have only about 5 minutes left from the scheduled time.
Okay.
But if you can, I really wanted to hear from Nasri, right, Ornella?
Yes.
Yes. If you can, at least a closing comment.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us, for having us in this very interesting meeting. I just would like to say that the plagiarism, which was mentioned before, and some other issues about the integrity in the research, are just some of the important points of the integrity in research. I would just mention that we have to have a full view of the integrity in research. We have to mention the code of conduct, and the code of conduct and the code for recruitment of the researchers. which I'm glad to say that the agency, the NASRI, has been promoting this code of conduct for more than 6 years. And I'm also glad to say that we have more than 23 institutions in Albania which have endorsed the principles of code and charter and code. And I am glad to say as well that we have two universities which have implemented, which have gone under through the implementation action plan, and they've implemented the principles of charter and code in their everyday actions, everyday works. And this is the University of Vlora and University of Tirana. And there are 40 principles of charter and code. Just to mention very quickly, it has to do with research freedom, ethical principles in every field, in every sectorial or institutional. We can have a code of ethics, such as in health or other fields. Professional responsibility, professional attitude, structural or legal obligations, accountability, good practice in research, dissemination and exploitation of research, public engagement, relation with supervisors. That's just to mention, because on each point there are a lot to say about supervision and managerial duties, and counting professional development, recognition of the profession, non-discrimination, research environment, working condition, stability and permanence of employment, funding and salaries, gender balance, career development, value of mobility, access to research, training and continuous development, access to career advice, intellectual property rights, which is very important, co-authorship, teaching, supervision, evaluation, and complaints, appeals, participation in decision-making bodies, which is very important as well, recruitment, which is very important, how it is made. And then we have the code of conduct for recruitment of researchers, which has to do with the recruitment. Are they done, which has to do to selection, transparency, variations in the chronological order of CVs, recognition of mobility experience, recognition of qualification, seniority, postdoctoral appointments, and so on and so on. There are 40 points, and together with that, we are we'll try to make a code of conduct for Albania, to have some principle, to have an Albanian code of conduct, which is not right, which has not been done, but it will have this line. But endorsement of this code of conduct from some more institutions in Albania will be a move in the right direction. I will just mention as well the code of conduct for research integrity. The code of conduct for research integrity, which is a complementary of the code of conduct for researchers. Code of conduct for researchers has been one of the core of the EURAccess platform. Maybe you are familiar with your EURAccess platform. Albania is part of this pan-European platform, which is a very interesting and very helpful and very useful for a platform for researchers. So if I have some more time, I can go further. Okay.
No, Robert,
okay.
We are unfortunately out of time,
okay.
but I'd like you to open up if somebody has one or two questions. I know I see Tauland, I see Mirela, so we can have Tauland first and then Mirela.
Yes. Okay.
Robert, thank you very much. I mean, very nice to see each other.
Yeah.
My question is that in Albania, it's not that we lack regulations. In many areas, we are perfect when it comes to regulations, to specifying ethical standards and so on. The problem is in applying them. I mean, we have also the penal code, for instance, that according to the penal code, if you do plagiarism, you can, you can go up in the jail up to years, for instance. So what do we do with applying the regulation? Because as we speak, we provide more and more academic titles. We're not improving the scientific product of the country.
So to speak about, you are very focused on plagiarism, and you are
general.
right. In general, you are right on it. You are very right, because but plagiarism in Albania is, let's say, we all know that's buildings without permission anywhere. This is, I can compare this phenomenon like the buildings which have been grown up everywhere in this. And to go back on this issue, I think it's a very hard and very difficult decision. I am with Linda on this point. Who will be the body who will judge the doctoral and PhDs which have been awarded in the last 10 or 20 years? It is a very it is also a political issue, a political decision, and I don't know when it will be to have it to scan and to screen all the 20 in the last 20 years. But as we are speaking today for the integrity in research, I think we had to be focused much more at the other issues as well, which are not less important, as plagiarism is very important too. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think Mirela might want to add some things. Mirela, you can unmute yourself, please.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for organizing such event, and thank you all the participants that participated in it. It was very interesting, in fact, and there were a lot of things that we can take from this event and reflect in our work, in our daily work. So, in fact, also the plagiarism is one of the issue of the ethics. It's not the only one, in fact, and Robert mentioned it, or Nela also mentioned it. A lot of participants that mentioned some things about the ethics. But I would like to say that in a way we took some measures last year to tackle the plagiarism. So, but what I'd like to say is that we need a law. In fact, we need a very comprehensive legislation framework, because we have a very old law. It's a law of 94. So starting from the next year, we are going to revise this law. And I think that to do it in the best way, we have to open the platform, and to invite all the researchers, all the academics, all the participants from different organizations to participate in discussions, just to have a new and comprehensive law with regard the research, scientific research. So that's why I'd like to take the floor. In fact, just to invite all the people that are interested to have a new and comprehensive law with regard the scientific research, to participate in the discussion. So starting from the next year, from the beginning of next year, by January, I think the Ministry of Education will start the discussions for the new one. This is what I would like to say, and thank you again, Ornella and the others, GIS, for organizing this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mirela. We have some questions still.
Okay.
We have Erand Lanai. He has some questions. Christy also has some questions, and Yonel, you too.
No, no, I just wanted to remind that Christy and Eran will be our last, Ornella.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I will have to be brief to allow also the other participants. So since we are here and we are a very good composition of people and also people from positions that actually want to fight, because I don't think anyone here wants to be in a country that promotes plagiarism. We are all on the same page regarding not only plagiarism, which is just one part of integrity, as Robert said, but I think that the ethical conduct of the framework of the conduct is a good starting point. And since we didn't have any PhD programs for 7 years, I think that what happened, I know it's hard to address and it needs time, but we can start from now and on. Just think about of a project that we have entertained it as an idea with Tauland in the past, the National Doctoral Council, which is a hybrid institution between the Ministry of Education and the Academy of Science, even though I say it with a heavy heart. And then you can start from that, make a database of all the PhDs that will open, a transparent what is the ongoing topic, who is the supervisor, and then we can feed trust to ourselves and to the public. And transparency, I think, is the key to unleash the potential of research integrity in Albania. This is my comment, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Rand. Christy, it's your turn.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I have a question from Mr. Dumi and also a comment. I want to build up on the comments of Tauland that yes, we have very good regulation and code of conducts regarding the PhD studies and the evaluation in Albania, but another thing is the code of conduct, which is very subjective from my point of view, and another thing is the necessary means that have to be used in order to check the PhDs and the plagiarism in Albania. For example, I'm doing a second master in London and also a PhD in Germany, and there is always a platform that checks plagiarism, like Turnitin, for example. Is such a platform existent in Albanian institutions and universities? And second, there is a comment from me. I have to disagree with Mr. Dumi that plagiarism is not a big question. It's not the most important question in scientific research. I think that it is the most important question in scientific research, since it destroys the meritocracy. And we have also many examples in many countries, like Germany, for example, where the minister only 2 weeks ago lost her PhD due to plagiarism. That's why I would like to get an explanation regarding my question from Mr. Dumi, if there is something like that for what I asked. Thank you very much.
No, Robert, can you unmute yourself, please? Please. Great, thank you. Yep, you are good now.
Okay. I thank you for the questions. I think I did mention quite clear that the plagiarism is very important, but it's among the other important points of research integrity in research. If we are today speaking for integrity in research, we could not let aside the other points. That's why I mentioned the other 39 points. Plagiarism is one of them. I could agree with you, the most important, but the others are not less important. So there is for the second question. For the first question, it was that is there any institution in Albania which are dealing with plagiarism? No, until now, there are some initiatives to make an institutional software to deal with plagiarism. Until today, it's not. Every university has to deal with itself the plagiarism. So if they say, the university say it is okay, we take it for granted that is okay, this doctoral or PhD.
I think if I can add something, also in my university, for example, you have to make sure that, because you are actually publishing, my university is not here, it's in Spain. When you publish your research, you usually check before you submit your scientific paper in a scientific journal. So more or less, that is kind of like a threshold if you are plagiarizing or not. But at the same time, it's up to you to make sure that you're not plagiarizing. Maybe in every institution is different, every country is different. So it might be the case in Germany and UK might be different, and in other countries might be different.
Can I add something, Robert?
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can I add something? When a request comes from, you know that NASRI is entitled to register all the PhDs. And when it comes from the universities, the request to register a PhD, it is necessary to provide an evidence that the PhD has also a report that is coming from a platform that controls the anti-plagiarism. So this is somehow a mechanism, an instrument that can help to avoid this kind of issue. It's not an instrument that is absolutely which can avoid this important issue, but still it is an instrument, a mechanism. Thank you.
No.
I think it's time to wrap it up. If it was for us, because I can see we're all researchers, we all want to talk about research, but we cannot go over like forever. But I would like to thank everybody, the panelists and everybody who participated. I would like to thank Livia for the great presentation, Tauland for also another great presentation, Robert Dumi also for presenting the code of ethics here in Albania. Thank you very much, and thank you for participating in this event. And it was quite engaging, and that is great because that means that people were listening, and I'm happy for that. I hope we will see each other again. Maybe I might organize another such event soon, and we have your emails, and we will send you the link for this recording, and you can share it with anybody who couldn't participate in this webinar today. And see you next time. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Ornella.